Welcome to the At the Coalface podcast with your host, Jason Greenwood. This podcast is all about what it's really like in the trenches of digital and e-commerce. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the pod. It's my pleasure to have the founder and CPO of Avataar today. Welcome, Gaurav, to the podcast. It's great to have you.
Thanks, Jason, for having me, and it's a pleasure to be part of your podcast. I've been following it for quite some time and really love the whole spectrum of aspects that you cover for e-commerce and retail players. I personally feel that if there's any player who has an offline plus online presence, yours is a definite one to.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the kind words there. It's definitely what I like to do, and what I try to do is expose new technology, new concepts, new ideas to the world of e-commerce and digital. And it's a fantastic opportunity for me to have these kinds of conversations with very interesting people building very interesting things. Sounds like you're building something super interesting over at Avataar. If we go back before Avataar, because you've been doing this for a long time, you've been doing this for over 8 years, you've been building this product, this platform over at Avataar for over 8 years. But prior to that, you weren't in tech, you weren't in digital, you were in the financial world. You worked at American Express, you worked at Deutsche Bank. So you come from this commercial background, this financial background. So I'd love to know a little bit more about how you came to be in tech and digital and building an amazing product after having been in the commercial space for a number of years.
Would love to touch upon that, Jason. To start off with my backdrop, yes, I do have an initial exposure to the financial domain, the companies that you mentioned. When I was an investment banker at Deutsche, I was actually covering consumer tech space. So for me personally, it's been close to a dozen years now in the tech domain. But that's where my love for tech also started. The passion for business has always been there. So I come from a business family, Jason, for your knowledge. So these are business has always been like dinner table conversation for us at home. So since very early in my childhood, I've always been focused on building a business on my own. When I started out in the professional world, of course, the initial years were more in the banking domain. But that's where my love for tech also started, because I was working with those industry giants in the space, being part of those boardroom discussions where my own exposure and my own learning kind of grew from there on. And then, yes, it transpired into us starting Avataar, where over the last 8 years, just been enjoying my time in building this deep tech platform that we have.
Wow, amazing story. When I have different people on the pod, they all have such diverse backgrounds. It's very often I find that they don't necessarily have deep background in the sector that they ultimately go into. Maybe they've been in tech before, maybe not. But usually what they're building is to scratch an itch. They identified a gap in the market where something wasn't being done at all, or it wasn't being done well, or they saw an opportunity to execute at a much higher level than what was available in the market. And so specifically, before we get into the tech and before we get into exactly what Avataar does, how did you decide on the niche that you wanted to get into when you started building Avataar?
Sure, Jason, and that's probably the most important aspect of our journey, because that's where it all started. What we realized, Jason, is a very obvious but mostly overlooked fact. We all live in a 3D world, and human sensory perception is 60% visual. It's about the 3D stuff that we see around us. Unfortunately, the digital consumption of the same visual content has been limited to 2D screens, like the laptops and the mobile devices that we have. Audio, on the other hand, which is just 20% of the sensory perception, has had the benefit of spatial depth with technologies like surround sound, noise cancellation for decades now. That's where the niche for us started, that our vision is to bring that spatial depth to visual discovery experiences for the end consumer. In this journey, we have been focused on, because we are a B2B2C company, we are focused on the end consumer, of course, as well as our partners, which is the middle P in the equation. So that's our vision for Jason build, and that's where it kind of did on.
Love it. Now, if we start talking a little bit more about what Avataar is, judging by your website, just looking at the website, reading through the collateral that you have, I've never deployed Avataar before, so I'm not deeply familiar with it. However, I have deployed 3D and AR tech before in projects. We've also had the benefit of having some 3D technology providers on the podcast. Before, we had Marksent 3D, we had Spliff 3D. They work on different aspects of AR and VR. Those two companies, one of them works on product personalization, so you can see your product personalizations in real time, i.e., putting your name on a coffee mug, for example, and you want to see that in real time through a website. Then the other one is really showing you different versions of a product with different types of materials, different types of colors, different types of textures, that sort of thing. So really see 3D, VR, AR, and being able to, that second company also shows you specific products within the context of a given room, say furniture in a given room of your house. And they can show you contextually what a product will look like in a physical space. So I guess there's a lot of tech out there that is leaning more towards that 3D visualization of products as you describe, because of the fact that we've got these flat displays that are 2D displays, but people increasingly want to see products in that three-dimensional view so that they can really understand what a product looks like, what it feels like, and what it's gonna behave like in their physical spaces. And so I guess that is really becoming a very important aspect of e-commerce that's growing very quickly. And certainly as we move more towards a metaverse media UI UX environment, then 3D is going to become 3D, AR, VR, XR is going to become more important than ever before, because these are going to be 3D spaces. These are going to be perceived as 3D visual spaces. And it sounds like you're in a very hot industry, a very fast moving space. But if we go by kind of how you've described your product, you say Avataar is shaping consumers' online buying and browsing behavior by creating immersive, interactive shopping experiences and reimagining the visual discovery journey. It uses a globally first of its kind XR, AR technology, deep learning, AI, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of big claims, and you're backed by some very big investors, Tiger Global, Sequoia Capital. So what is it specifically that Avataar?
To start off, Jason, our mission is to democratize 3D and AR. What it basically means is that we're in the process of making 3D and AR a very easy access tool for merchants, as well as something that the end consumer or the shoppers on the other end could interact with in their daily lives and make informed purchase decisions. To make this happen, we are in the process of upgrading all existing 2D touchpoints that a brand has with its consumers to life-size interactive 3D. And when existing 2D content, Jason, what I'm actually referring to is the images and videos that you see online today. We're in the process of replacing them with life-size 3D using AR as one of the mediums, of course, adding RXR and other aspects to it as well. But in this process of democratizing 3D, what we really have to solve for, Jason, is making sure both demand and supply meet each other. And when I refer to supply to start with, the impact or the power of 3D is well understood. It's a very obvious one, as like when we are discussing. Anyone who's listening to would understand that, okay, yes, 3D does add value. But the problem with 3D as a domain has been that it has never been scalable. 3D content creation has always been plagued with constraints of quality at scale and even getting that quantity at scale to a large extent, where it takes days and sometimes weeks for a 3D artist to create a content to be used by the end consumer. Where our platform comes in is where our neural radiance field enabled tech, it helps on the supply side, is today we can take any set of images of an existing product or a quick video of an existing product and create a life-size 3D of it in matter of just minutes. It doesn't take any longer those days or weeks for any content. You get a highly photorealistic rendition of that product in just about 20 to 30 minutes from our platform. That's where we are trying to bring in scalability for supply. On the demand side, what we have done is we have built this lovely out-of-the-box solution for headless ecosystems. We are today live with Shopify and BigCommerce and expanding into other platforms, where any merchant who has an online store can come on these platforms, just install our app. It's a single-click integration for end-to-end, and just go live with these 3DR experiences without the need of any technical expertise, which has been the other constraining factor in this domain, because the lack of technical expertise or the amount of bandwidth and cost involved in getting these experiences have been huge, which has been restraining the merchants and most of the plethora of the broad spectrum of merchants in terms of adopting 3D across their catalog. So with our out-of-the-box solution, we are solving for that. and enabling merchants to take these 3D powerful AR experiences to their end consumer.
And it looks like, just looking at your website, I see some of the sort of demo experiences that are showing on your website. You show one tab, which looks like it's the image window of, say, a product detail page. It's got sort of two tabs above the image window. It says view in 3D, and then it has another tab option, view in AR, which I assume is showing that item in a specific visual space, say on a mobile device, where you could hold it up in your room and you could see this item physically in your at-home space. So you have, for example, you've got like a lazy boy chair there. You're showing it in a full 360-degree view with the actual, I guess, extension for the legs of the chair folding out. You show that in real time, folding out. You show it with different colors of the chair. You also show a refrigerator there with a full 360-degree rotational view where you can basically click and drag the 360-degree rotation. You can also see there's almost a wireframe image underneath the real image of the item. There's almost like a wireframe image where looks like you can click or tap on it, so you can see it in different states of deployment. So in the case of the refrigerator, you can see it with the refrigerator doors open. In the case of the lazy boy, you can see it with the leg portion extended out or retracted in. So you're really showing and you're demonstrating through visual cues the types of visualizations that are available for that product. And you're actually able to select it in real time and see it expand in real time. And then also, it looks like you have what looks like the ability to effectively take a bunch of still images, maybe 4 still images of a product. And you show, just as an example, you show a barbecue screen, barbecue image showing in 360-degree view rotation. And what it looks like is, if you took either a video walking around the barbecue, or if you took maybe 4 or 5 images of that barbecue as you walked around the barbecue, then it looks like effectively your technology smartly stitches those images together to create a seamless 3D 360 rotational view image that then can display on the product page, and I'm guessing on category pages as well. Is that pretty accurate?
Absolutely spot on, Jason. And that's where most of our patents today lies, but you have summed up the tech very accurately to start with. If I could add a little bit more, again, on the consumer experience side, the lazy boy reclining or the refrigerator opening up, the examples that you took, as well as what you saw in 3D, as well as the ability to take it to your own physical environment, whether it be your home or wherever you want to place those and see the look and fit. That's the capability that the consumer experience provides, as well as the scalability on the content side, where you can take these images or a quick video of the product. It just takes about matter of seconds that you hold any monocular camera, which is part of every mobile device. So we are not dependent on LiDAR or any specific, which is restricted to limited number of devices. But with any monocular camera out there, you can just take a quick capture of the product from all the sites. We don't like to generate reality, Jason, and that's the reason we ask for images or video from all angles, because with the context of commerce, we want to present the product as is in the realistic rendition for the end consumer. So for that reason, even though our capability with Nerf allows us to do that, we don't do it because of the context of commerce, as I just mentioned. But yes, we are able to do it. Broadly, Jason, underlying all of this is what we call internally as contextual reality. That's the reasoning behind us trying to solve the problem in the way today. Now, when we look at AR or those interactivity with the products, that's where we are trying to bring the context of the consumer purchase. If I'm trying to buy that couch or that recliner for my living space, we allow a consumer to take that couch today, place it in their living space where they want to look at it, and thus make an informed decision. We also allow reverse AR, where what you can do is actually carry your home along with you. Again, places are Nerf tech, which I was referring to. You can recreate your entire living space into a virtual model. And let's say you're visiting an offline store and you find that same lazy boy chair over there and you like it. What you can do is that while standing inside that offline store, you can place that chair into your virtual living space, which is the virtual replica of your physical living space, and then see how it looks and fits over there. Our objective, Jason, over here is to make contextual reality persistent around user, and that's where it's kind of transition into metaverse also, as you were referring to earlier. because we are all we are at the cusp of metaverse era, and everyone wants these experiences to be more persistent, more integrated into their daily lives, which is what we are working towards.
And when I look at your website now, I've clicked on platform, I go into headless, and that's where I see that you've got that single click integration, app-based integration with BigCommerce and Shopify, but it's sitting underneath the headless tab of your website. But I assume that even if I've got a monolithic deployment of BigCommerce or Shopify using their native storefront engines, that your technology will still work just fine with a monolithic deployment. Or if someone wants to use them as purely the catalog backend, then obviously they can shoot the imagery, they can upload it via your app, that can do all the stitch work, et cetera, and then it can effectively load those additional images or those versions and variants of the images to the catalog as alternative images of those products that can be interacted with via 3D experiences. And then I'm guessing if they've got static images that can sit alongside those 3D images, then those will play nice together as well. So I'm guessing that effectively you take over and own the image display areas on, say, a BigCommerce or Shopify website. On the PDP, for example, you can take over the image display window with your images so that people can interact with them. They can touch, they can rotate them, they can select the different image options, they can select the different colors, the fill, etc., all from right within that native, either liquid in the case of Shopify or stencil in the case of BigCommerce, those native themes.
Absolutely, Jason. So yes, we are live with both stencil, liquid, as well as other native monolithic constructs on both these platforms, as you were referring to. So that option is available for all the merchants, and yes, any merchant today. So we power up all 2 million. Like we have the capability to power up all 2 million merchants on Shopify platform. So this is available to everyone out. So none of the players will have any issue in terms of integrating our solution to their front-end consumer experiences. On the PDP, yes, we do enrich and uplift the experience on the image carousel front, though our customization tool does allow a merchant to make it more suitable for their own PDPs, for their own e-store, because as the different merchants have different customization built on the native platforms as well. So that's where the additional feature support we also do provide to these merchants. But in majority of the context, yes, it empowers the image carousel where the consumer or the end user sees the different images of a product, and from the same place they can now activate a 3D experience and start playing with the product. Of course, there is a global theme of different types of interactivity that we provide. Couple of that you already mentioned in terms of the variants of color that a product may have. Now, instead of going to different PDPs for each of them, you can see all of them together. Interactivity that we talked about in terms of refrigerator door opening up, or even a bed opening up and the storage space being shown to the user, things like those, as well as the dimensions, which is another very important aspect, Jason, for our platform, because while you're placing the product in your physical space, the dimension helps and guides you in terms of the fitment part, because in certain lower end devices, you may find that sometimes the accuracy is slightly off to the extent of few millimeters here and there. But the dimension part helps and guides the end user in making, again, a very informed decision.
And do you see, so I primarily consult to complex merchants that are in the B2B space and in the D2C space. A lot of the 3D technology like this, I see targeted fairly and squarely at the B2C space. And I see this targeted at consumer type products, very visual products, things like fashion, clothing, furniture, whiteware in your case, because they want to be seen in a physical space in the home, or we want to see what something is going to look like on us, or we want to see what a hair color might look like on us. We're coloring our hair and we're buying a hair product. And so I noticed that this kind of technology, whilst it is primarily targeted at the retail consumer, that it feels like this technology would also be massively beneficial to B2B businesses that have highly technical products where there are visual differences, and they might only be minor. They might only be slight visual differences from one item to the next. And it might even be able to help with fitment visualization for things like auto parts and I can think of many other B2B verticals where this type of immersive experience would still be beneficial, even though it's not a retail end consumer that might be putting something in their home or wearing something, or where the aesthetics of something are super important. Even in the B2B space where the aesthetics aren't as important as fitment and understanding exactly in detail what a product looks like, where a little component sticks out the side, and that might be the only differentiation from one version of a product to the next. It feels like being able to rotate these products in 3D, in a 3D way, and being able to look in and zoom in on very specific elements of a product, it still feels like this type of experience would be massively valuable. And I just don't see many B2B businesses yet deploying 3D technology. In fact, I'm not aware of any B2B e-commerce businesses and merchants that are deploying this type of 3D immersive technology. And it feels like this would dramatically reduce the need for a consumer, a B2B consumer, a B2B customer to talk about products with a sales rep or a field sales rep or a account manager. Or it feels like this could dramatically ease the B2B buying experience for many verticals that, as of today, you're lucky if you get any image at all. Oftentimes it might just be a part number and nothing else of a specific item, but it feels like this type of immersive experience will eventually make its way into the B2B spaces.
To be honest, Jason, it actually to an extent is already getting there. And again, you are spot on in terms of identifying the trend, which is playing out in the use case as well. Just to add a little bit more to that, yes, the right to win for 3D and AR in today's context has been in the categories where end consumer is also involved: fashion, home decor, electronics, accessories, and whatnot. So yes, these are the categories which have already seen huge uplift with 3D and AR. To the context of our own platform, we have seen 90% plus conversion uplift from what the metrics with 2D catalogs or 2D flow used to be. Interactive 3D AR has delivered 90% better conversions over and above what was there. So yes, the ROI outcomes have already been proven for the certain end consumer driven categories. But when it comes to the context of more B2B players, from the context of our platform, it's agnostic of any sector. Right? And we have worked with players across different verticals to the extent of auto players as well as in-store integrations that we have done. There has been a use case where across the country, like every store of a brand that we have empowered, and the stores rep, we were actually empowering those store reps to deliver demos for their use case for that context. Yes, the power of the platform is definitely there. It has the capability to do it, but then there is an underlying principle that we follow, Jason, across everything that we bring to the market, which is the self-serve aspect. So our platform today follows the notion of being a self-serve tool for for our partners, whether it be merchant or anyone else on the other side who is using it. So that's where we have opened up the out-of-the-box solution today for merchants in the B2C space, and kind of given them those broad themes of different types of 3D AR interactivity in terms of taking it to their end consumer. In parallel, we are obviously also building or broadening that whole spectrum of themes that we have, so that tomorrow different kind of verticals, different kind of industries could also be empowered by it. But the notion of self-serve will always remain there, that whenever we bring any product, any solution to the end market, we make sure that it's so seamless and so easy that anyone on the other end without specific tech expertise can deploy it and use. So this has been the biggest challenge in the domain of AI. And given we are a AI and computer vision platform this is one thing that we were cognizant of very upfront, very early in our journey. Just for your context, 86% of AI prototypes never make it to production. Of course, there is varied reasons behind it, but the core always has been that there was never a business value behind it. So in terms of getting that alignment right between the AI part as well as the business part has been our focus always, so that we can bring in that scalable solution for everyone out there to use and experience our platform and get value out of it, rather than it being or staying like a prototype. So that's how we decide, basically.
And how are you seeing brands integrate this into the physical store experience? And let me explain what I mean by that. So I've seen multiple brands that have deployed technology like this, or maybe similar to this, on their website, and maybe they've got this full 3D immersive experience and maybe even the AR experience available via mobile on their website, but they don't necessarily tightly integrate it with the store experience or even necessarily expose it to the in-store experience. And I think they're missing out on a massive opportunity from my position. They are making these massive investments, but they're not leveraging them in these omni-channel experience ways, and they're really leaving it to be only presented in their e-commerce websites. And so they're not fully leveraging it. They're not surprising and delighting customers in the physical locations and physical stores to the extent that they could. And I'm thinking along the lines of, hey, if I've implemented your technology and I've gone to the work of getting all of these 3D images and these AR experiences built out on my website, why wouldn't I want to ensure that my in-store shoppers are aware that I've got this experience and partake in that experience right there in the moment, on the spot? And so I'm thinking things like kiosks. If I've got a furniture store, why wouldn't I want to have an iPad on a podium next to those specific items so that I can interact with those items in different colors? So if I've only got one color and one variant of an item displayed in the store, why wouldn't I want someone right in the moment there to be able to see via kiosk all of the variants of that product, all the different colors, all the rotations, all the views of that product? Or why wouldn't I want to, for example, put QR codes on every single product in my store where I can immediately via my phone click on the QR code and put a big sign in my store saying, available now, view every single item in 3D and in real time in your physical space. So just click on every QR code in the store and they can interact with that item in 3D and AR and take us directly to the product page of that item in the physical store via our mobile device in real time. I just don't see any brands, actually, even the ones that invest in this type of technology, I don't see them making the effort to join together the online and the offline experience in a hyper seamless way and to connect them in a hyper seamless way and to further expose their investments in this tech in their physical spaces. Are you seeing that too? Are you seeing a lack of creativity in the way that they blend these experiences in the physical and virtual worlds?
First of all, thank you, Jason, for bringing that point up because I couldn't resonate more with what you just said. Answer your question as well as to bring out certain specific ways in which it's being done. What I'd like to first of all say is that phygital or omni-channel has been core to our platform right from the beginning. Whenever we think of consumer, we think of the entire journey, the entire funnel, because what we understood very early in the game is that there is a majority, a very large chunk of offline transactions which are usually influenced through online behavior, online discovery. So where the consumer get exposed to a product in the online ecosystem, but actually they go walking into a store and convert and buy the product. So we always wanted to stitch the whole journey together for a consumer so that whether they start the journey online or offline, they can continue and take it to the end goal, which is the purchase of the product. So what we have seen till date is, of course, and by till, when I say till date, it's actually till the end of last year, where I would still kind of maybe say that many players have been a little bit hesitant in terms of venturing into the AR ecosystem for their in-store experiences. But in recent couple of quarters, what we have seen is that notion is changing. We are today working with large two large brand retailers with both offline and online presence. And for their countrywide store activations, we are working with them to create experiences for their walk-in customers. Now, these that fall under four broad categories from the perspective where I look at it, Jason. First, when they each try to solve a different problem that retail has been plagued with for over decades, since the early days of retail, offline retail, I mean, we have seen those problems being there. And with AR, the power to unlock further potential on that, solve for those erstwhile problems exist today. The first aspect is of infinite. The floor space or shelf space has been the most challenging part in for any retail outlet. They could never have enough of it, and with whatever they have, they're always focused on getting more returns from every inch, every square feet of area that they put to use. With the concept of 3D and AR, they can practically create infinite aisles where they don't need shelf space or floor space, But for a particular category, they can show the consumer an endless catalog, which is synced with their online catalog as well, and enable them to make a purchase decision while in the store, even if the actual product is not in the store. The second and equally important aspect has been around experience zones. It's like the kiosk that you were also referring to, where a retailer dedicates a space for consumers to come and interact with that space for the entire catalog that they have provided. They provide aspirational context, setup, and combined looks for the consumer to experience, which kind of triggers again the journey from there on. And this is again more of a pull from the consumer because each walk-in into the store could have their own flow. So it's not a fixed set of looks that is being pushed to every consumer, but in fact the consumer walking into the store and then deciding themselves that what they would like to combine together, create a look which kind of inspires them to make a purchase. Third one, again, the product scan category, which includes a QR code as well, which you were referring to, as well as scanning the physical product, because AR today can allow for image-based scan as well. So scanning the product to see the different feature and capabilities of that product. It could be just an immersive experience which kind of pops out when you look at let's say a dishwasher and tells you about the different features of that dishwasher, or the QR code in that aisle where you have put various smaller products and they activate a separate journey for each of the products. And the fourth one, which is again solving for the lack of enough experts in terms of manpower on the floor, is hologram based sales assistant, which kind of creates a 3D AR experience of a sales assistant, which kind of answers every question that or every query that a walk-in customer may have without the need of a physical person to be there to solve for those aspects, because these are again standard set of that every walk-in customer is looking for, and that's what 3D and AR has been able to provide for. So with this whole spectrum of solutions that we have, we are seeing right now that uptake in the industry and that acceptance also in the industry that yes, this is adding way more value and unlocking a lot of potential for us. We are seeing that integration with the physical flow for the retailers that we are working with.
Yeah, look, I think that retailers are going to have to start blending the online and offline in a physical way. I love that word, physical, digital. I think they're going to have to start blending this in a more seamless way to get a better uptake from consumers. Brands have had the opportunity for years now to do something as simple as, if I'm walking down an aisle in a store and I'm looking at a category of products in a specific position in the aisle, I could have a literal QR code hanging right there on the shelf or somewhere from the ceiling or whatever near that. And near that type of product, let's say it's dishware or something like that, I could have a QR code hanging there that says, see more products like these. And then the QR code would open up in the subcategory on the website where all these products live, or at the aisle end cap, see more products from this category at the end of each aisle with a QR code that would take people into the parent category for all the products that are on that aisle. And I think that these are very simple, easy to do things that start to blend the online and offline experience. And I just don't see retailers doing it. This type of cross-selling, upselling, endless aisle experience, brands seem to want to take this hyper complex, hyper convoluted way of delivering these experiences when the technology is actually already there. It's actually very simple. They've already got categorization on their website. They've already got product groupings. They've already got cross-sells and upsells on their website. So why not take advantage of all of those immersive experiences that they've already built out online and expose them really easily and seamlessly in the offline world? And I think that now, especially with COVID coming to an end and people having become very used to using QR codes, the QR codes have been popular in Asia for many years, as you well know, but they haven't been popular in the West. They really haven't caught on. But because of COVID and because of the check-in requirements, et cetera, almost everybody in the Western world now knows what a QR code is and knows how to use it. I know this is getting a little bit off topic for what you guys do, but it's not really off topic in the sense that if a brand is going to invest in technology like yours, and they're going to invest in the effort to build out these immersive experiences online, it seems to me like they would want to make every single effort possible to expose these experiences in the physical space. And I don't see brands being very creative yet. Let's put it this way. There's very few brands that I see being creative in the way that they expose these digital experiences in store. And you're saying you're working with two large retail brands. That's amazing. There are thousands and thousands of retail brands out there. And I think that especially the smaller ones that maybe only have 2, 3, 5, 10 physical stores, they think that bringing these experiences in store is going to cost them the earth and they could never afford it. But what I'm suggesting is there are easy ways, low tech ways of bringing these experiences in store that almost any brand can execute on, regardless of how many stores that they have. Would you agree?
Definitely, Jason, couldn't agree more. And that seamlessness and simplicity in terms of integration has been one of the key principles for us at Avataar. Another perspective, maybe if I could add to it, is businesses can no longer look at products from just a customer centric approach, which is more focused on performance. They will now have to evolve, especially the post pandemic world, as you were referring to. Businesses need to evolve into a life centric model where they kind of focus more on delivering an experience for the end consumers. That's the thing that will help them sustain and build those relationships for the long run. In this process, they will have to understand and accept the end consumer as a multifaceted being for whom it's human to act paradoxical at times. And they are impacted by unpredictable external forces. So while taking that life-centric approach, creating the experiences which kind of immerse an end consumer into a different reality and helps them get a better understanding of what they're buying or what they're looking at would be very useful. And that's what I think is now what people have started to understand. And as you said, a lot more have to come to the same understanding, accept the change, accept the new era, the new normal that we are in, and start building for that very soon. Otherwise, they would get impacted with what the consumer expectation is, who is saying that they need newer ways for businesses to interact with them, whereas the existing or the erstwhile businesses are not able to find those mechanism to build and get to the end consumer. That's where simplicity in the solution will play a big role. So it's not about building those complex, convoluted solutions, as you were also touching upon, but building more purpose-driven and simpler solutions that kind of drives consumer to a certain outcome.
Couldn't agree more. Now, if we look at your roadmap of development for where you're at today, you've been at this for a number of years now. Is there anything that your customers are asking you for today that you don't necessarily deliver yet? Or what kind of functionality is on your roadmap for the next 6, 12, 18 months that you say, hey, we do this today, but we want to do it better, or we don't do this at all and we want to add this functionality? What are some of the key areas on your roadmap that you see as mission critical for your customers?
To be honest, we are trying to be ahead of the ecosystem. We are, in some sort of a way, Jason, category creators in the space, being the pioneer in the space. We had the benefit or the luxury of driving consumer behavior in certain direction. So we have been able. Our customers are today more looking at us as the experts in the ecosystem in terms of helping them understand what would work for their end consumers and what should be built. But in terms of roadmap, I'll probably break it down into two aspects of what we want to build upon. Today, the platform is capable of that, but as we evolve into this new era, as I was referring to earlier, with Web 3.0 coming, the decentralized web, the decentralization of even consumer decisions happening, as well as the talks around all metaverse ecosystems which are taking shape. There are two aspects that we want to really focus on. And again, being true to our nature, stay ahead of the game. The first one is plug and play across all wearable devices, which are coming to the fore now. I soon, over the course of maybe next 3 to 5 years, is that they become really mainstream. But what we want to do, even though we are slightly ahead of the time, maybe, but would love to build this entire ecosystem, which is plug and play with the wearable devices that a consumer would start having very, as we all know that maybe it's as early as next year that iPhones will start coming bundled in with an AR glass, and there are other variables which are also in the pipeline, which would soon hit the end consumers. So we want to be ready for that change. We want to be again driving that change, being the pioneer in the space. That is first aspect. Second, very important from the position I look at it, Jason, is the interoperability between different ecosystems. Today, for an end consumer, when they go and check out a particular product on one platform, they can't take it and bring it to any other ecosystem and kind of club them together and maybe make a combined purchase together. What we think that the true unlocking of power would be, especially with metaverse and persistent systems coming around us, is where the interoperability starts playing out a role. That's where we are today, partner with Kronos as well as a founding member of their metaverse forum, and focus towards bringing this interoperability across different ecosystems, because we feel that this is what will again bring in a new level to the whole consumer game in terms of what the consumers can experience, what they can look at, and how we can add value to their life, which is the most critical aspect. If I go back to that life-centric approach, what kind of experiences are we bringing? How does it adding some uplift in everyday life of an end consumer? We feel that interoperability across different ecosystems is another key aspect which will play out over there. And that's what we are currently focused on.
If we talk about practical aspects, real world aspects of what you're describing there, I'm assuming that means ensuring that your technology plays nicely with upcoming AR glasses that will be worn in the real world spaces, and being able to visualize almost like a heads up display, a piece of furniture in your house, but directly in your AR glasses, being able to have full VR experiences through immersive VR goggles, and making sure that your experiences play nice with all of the different brands coming out from Meta and Apple and Google and everybody else, who's even Amazon getting in on the game, making sure that that you help to contribute to the building of cross-platform standards, because as of today there are no AR and VR standards that are universal. Unfortunately, we don't have kind of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript of the metaverse yet. Everybody's building in isolation or in silos, and they all have their own versions of this. And I think that AR and VR will not be able to go mainstream until we have some universal standards that every manufacturer can deploy, and therefore we have cross-platform experiences that are universal across devices. So that's the first thing. I assume that you want to make sure that your experiences play nice with all of the emerging hardware that's coming out, plus contribute to the standards in that space, combined with making sure that merchants understand what the differences in these devices and experience need to be, so that they can continue to have a seamless transition between those devices for their customer UX. And then secondarily, the next thing is to be able to enable and empower consumers to be able to grab, for example, multiple products from multiple vendors and multiple retailers, and, for example, maybe store those universal carts on a blockchain attached to their identity, so that they can see, let's say I was buying a sofa from one store and I was buying a fridge from another store. I want to see those together in the same seamless space. And so in order to do that, I would almost have to have a shared shopping cart or a stored shopping cart from multiple brands on the blockchain, assigned to my authentication, assigned to my user ID, that is then universal across multiple experiences, sites, and brands, so that I can bring these all together in a seamless way, as opposed to taking a photo of one, taking a photo of another, and then trying to build that together manually in my mind of how this stuff is all going to play nicely together. I want to be able to have that in a virtual way. And in 3D experiences and in the metaverse, we won't want to grab little snapshots digitally in those experiences and try to visualize those items together. We want to have that seamless between brands and between vendors and between suppliers. And so I think interoperability and shareability between different sites and brands is going to be key. So I'm assuming that those are the two types of things that you're referring to from a practical sense that you would like to contribute to over the next, say, 2 to 5 years.
Absolutely spot on, Jason, and just loving our conversation. The way you described it is exactly how we are also trying to solve the problem, in terms of like how today there is an HTML standard for web, a JPEG or PNG standard for 2D images. Similarly, we don't have anything for 3D and AR experiences. That's what we are today working with the whole metaverse forum, with Kronos leading the charter and Avataar being one of the players over there with all the other industry giants in this space. We are trying to get to that commonality of the experience of what we can build across different touch points for an end consumer, so that whichever may be the context that the consumer is looking at, we could be able to provide a seamless and a consistent experience and help them interact across different touch points.
Love it. And how do you guys make your money? Presumably, because you're effectively a SaaS platform that plugs in seamlessly to existing e-commerce websites and platforms, but also can be deployed in a standalone way across custom headless environments and physical environments. How do you guys charge customers for your platform? Is it a fixed platform monthly fee? Is it on a per product processed basis? How do you guys make your money?
So as a matter of principle, Jason, we ask for any money from our partners only after we have delivered value to them. So it's a freemium product where there's no subscription or fixed monthly or recurring cost which is involved. What we price ourselves is in terms of the transactions that we have delivered, and we take a very small cut out of the additional GMV that we have created for our partners. So it's a transaction fee model where we take a very small percentage out of every 3D enabled transaction that we deliver for the merchants on our platform.
So in other words, let's say I'm selling a fridge and I've created this 3D immersive experience on the PDP of this fridge, and someone buys a fridge through that PDP, then you effectively clip the ticket on that transaction.
Absolutely right, Jason. So every enablement of that transaction that we provide, we take a cut. So only for the 3D enabled catalog that we power for a merchant today, we take a cut out of that.
Makes absolute sense. Now, we're coming to the end of our time together, and I really do appreciate you sharing from your experiences and what you guys are building. That's super helpful, and I think it'll be super helpful for the audience as well. But we're now at the stage of the podcast where I turn the tables, I hand the microphone over to you, and I let you ask me one question, any question you like, and I do my very best to answer. It doesn't have to be related to our conversation, doesn't even have to be related to tech, but I would love to turn the microphone over to you from Avataar. What question do you have for me today?
I really appreciate that, Jason, because we'd love to get some insights from you as well. But as we all know, we are in unprecedented time. We are under this new era that we are all getting into, where the consumer behavior is evolving very drastically as well as very fast, Jason. So from the lens that you have been looking at, and you have been as I earlier mentioned, right, at the beginning of the podcast, that you look at the whole spectrum for an e-commerce or a retail player. So from that lens, how do you see this evolving consumer behavior impacting the retail ecosystem, and what should businesses and solution providers and platforms like ourselves should be focused on as we try to build for the evolving consumer behavior while staying relevant in the ecosystem?
Great question. Look, I see two massively growing trends that I think are going to catch a lot of retailers unawares. And these are the two big ones I'm seeing right now. Is as the pandemic comes to an end, many brands did not anticipate the level of return to physical retail that we're experiencing now. We're seeing that there was this massive COVID bump, but if we drew a straight line from 2012 to 2022 across the penetration of e-commerce as a total percentage of retail, as a percentage of total retail, I should say, if we take out the COVID bump, if we just follow that trend line from 2012 to 2022, we're reverting back to the mean in terms of e-commerce growth as a total percentage of retail. And many retailers were not expecting that. They were not expecting physical retail to come roaring back to the degree that it has. And so I think that the focus on blending offline and online experiences has to be an absolute top priority for retailers. It has to be, because they have to leverage their physical spaces in new ways. They have to bring more ROI to their physical spaces to bring down the TCO of those physical spaces, because rents aren't going down, rents are going up. It's become that showrooming experience for across almost every single sector of retail is becoming critically important, and it's even informing online transactions like never before. So I think blending those experiences together in physical spaces and bringing digital experiences to physical spaces is going to become more important than it has ever been. Now that people have gotten the real taste of those online experiences during COVID, they're not going to want to give those up, but they're wanting them to be blended seamlessly into the physical space. And I think that's a massive trend that is not getting enough attention yet, but I think it will be very soon, particularly as Amazon starts to bring their new in-store technologies to broader swathes of retail and even to their own Amazon stores. I think this is going to get a lot of attention over the next couple of years. The second trend that I'm seeing is B2B e-commerce is absolutely catching fire like never before. And it makes sense, right? During COVID, people had to buy online. They had no choice. And many B2B brands did not have an e-commerce experience, or they had a very substandard e-commerce experience. And their consumers, their B2B customers, were crying out and saying, hey, we don't want to have to buy through a field sales rep because we don't need, or we can't have a physical sales rep come and visit us, or we don't want to have to purchase through an account manager. We want to be able to have e-commerce self-service where we can shop online just like we would through Amazon or our favorite B2C retailer, but we want to be able to do that. We want to be able to have similar experiences, but B2B. So all of our B2B suppliers need to be e-commerce enabled so that we can have e-commerce self-service through those suppliers. Those are two of the biggest trends that I'm seeing right now that are, I think, are trends that are going to last. Those aren't just fads. Those are genuine trends I think are just going to continue to explode over the next 2 to 10 years from my perspective.
That's really insightful, Jason, and thanks for sharing those with us.
My pleasure. Now, if people want to get a hold of you, now, just for everybody's knowledge, Avataar, you've given it a bit of a play on words with Avatar.
Yeah.
The end of Avatar is AR, so it's basically spelled Avatar, and your website is avataar.ai. So if people want to get a hold of you, are they best to simply go to avatar.ai and get a hold of you guys through your website? You have the opportunity to schedule a demo. Is it best that they get a hold of you through there, or should they get a hold of you through LinkedIn? How should people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about what you guys do?
Yeah, so the best way would be the website, Jason. So as you rightly mentioned, we are Avatar with that additional A. So if they go to avatar.ai today, they have the option to reach out to us. They have the option to schedule a follow-up, and we would be able to answer all the queries and help them on every aspect of the solution that they are looking for. Otherwise, yes, me, myself, our company, and broadly the team, we are all very active on LinkedIn. So if they bump onto any one of us on LinkedIn as well, we would be happy to take in those queries and help them understand the solution that we.
Gaurav, it's been an amazing discussion. I've really appreciated our time together. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us today, and good luck as you continue to build out Avataar. I'd love to have a conversation with you in another 6, 12, 18 months and see all of the changes and enhancements that you've made to the product in that time. So thank you very much for the chat.
Pleasure was all mine, Jason, and thanks for having me on your show.
Are you a merchant or software vendor that is focused on e-commerce or omnichannel? Then head over to greenwoodconsulting.net to see how we can help you scale your business.